Shauna and I, I don't know if it's because like when you get older, you just like tend to get more morbid. I'm not sure if that's the truth, but I know that my Shauna and I, we sometimes talk about dying. We actually do that. And years ago already, I don't actually want a big tombstone, but if I could have a tombstone, I would want, I don't know if I said this before, I'd want it to be a big postcard, and then on the back it would say, "Having a wonderful time, wish you were here." That's what I want. I don't have any requests for the funeral. But Shauna, on the other hand, has two non-negotiable, not requests, rules, edicts, if you will, about her funeral. One is that there will be delectably delicious chocolate cake and not the funeral buns and cheese. Like, that's not allowed. So the cake is displacing the other stuff, okay? So that's it. The second one is the first person who gets up to talk about her in any way, shape, or form, she says, and I quote, must begin with these words: Shauna was a piece of work. That's from her lips. I kid you not. We were just joking the other day about, crossing over and going to heaven. She goes, yeah, when I get there, they're going to put me in the section for people who were a piece of work. And I just shot back. I said, honey, that's the only section in heaven is people that were a piece of work, right? Come on. And have you ever noticed, I think there's something really beautiful about this. Tom was telling some jokes today. He didn't tell any St. Peter at the gates of heaven jokes today, but have you noticed that it's always St. Peter? Like sometimes it's an angel, but if it's not a nondescript angel, it's always St. Peter at the gate of heaven. Have you noticed that? There's always like St. Peter's at the gate of heaven. He's got his clipboard or whatever. You got to get past St. Peter, apparently, in this joke, which I think is terribly reassuring because St. Peter was a piece of work. So if there were any doubt when you get to the gate of heaven, you should be like, oh, okay. If they let him in, we should be good, but it's obviously because of Jesus and everything. But if it were about getting by someone, putting a piece of work at the gate should put you at ease. I think. Anyways, so what we're going to talk about today in the next 4 weeks is we're actually going to talk about Peter, the piece of work, and we're going to walk through his like life, and we're gonna watch him grow. Because even though Peter was a piece of work, and he was a piece of work, he also had 5 traits, there we go. 5 traits, there we go, that were outstanding. So for all his flaws, for all the things he'd got wrong and putting his foot in his mouth and doing stuff he shouldn't have, cut somebody's ear off once, it's okay, Jesus put it back. So there's like all kinds of crazy stuff that Peter did. For all of that, he had 5 traits that all of us need if we're going to succeed in life. So here's the deal. We're going to take one of these traits for 5 weeks. We're going to walk through this. And here's my challenge. If you're here today and you're not quite ready to follow Jesus, can you follow Peter for 5 weeks, okay? Can we follow Peter and walk with him and watch him grow? I've been studying this guy. There's more on Peter than any of the other 12 apostles. I think it's because he was such a piece of work, and there's so much to learn from this guy. So what I want to do to start is I want to introduce you, I want to walk you into the moment where we first meet Peter in the New Testament in the Bible, okay? So this is the first time he and Jesus talk. So Jesus is walking around, and it's come to the point in his ministry where he's starting to recruit people for his movement, okay? So he's choosing his disciples who will become the 12 apostles that maybe you've heard of. So this is how it goes. The next day, don't worry about the day before, we're on this day. John, which is John the Baptist, was there again, he was by the river, with 2 of his disciples, and when he saw Jesus passing by, he said, "Look, the Lamb of God." Now, so John had his own disciples, and John's whole mission in life was to prepare people for the day when Jesus, the Messiah, would appear and would begin his ministry. So when Jesus walks by, he goes, "Well, my time's up. You may want to follow him." That's literally what's going on here. So when the 2 disciples heard him say this, they followed Jesus instead. So John has built his life around preparing way for Jesus, and now he's like, hey, well, there he is. see ya. And they leave him. They just leave him. They just go after Jesus. And turning around, Jesus saw them following and asked, what do you want? Have you ever had that? Where you're like, you're in Superstore or something, and someone's walking behind you, and you're like, are you following me? One time I was actually in Superstore, and a guy kept bonking my heel with a shopping cart. And so I was like, okay. So I turned around, and it was Mike over there. Seriously. He was just like, what do you want? Right? So this is what's happening to Jesus. That was really funny, by the way. And they said, Rabbi, which means teacher, where are you staying? And Jesus has this beautiful, cagey kind of, hey, well, why don't you come and find out? Okay, so he's like he's stirring up their curiosity, right? He's not making it easy for them. And this is where we meet Peter. Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, was one of the two who heard what John had said and who had followed Jesus, okay? So the first thing Andrew did once he had followed Jesus to where he was staying, gotcha, okay, now I know where you're staying, is he went and he found his brother Simon, and he told him, we found the Messiah. That is the Christ, and he brought him to Jesus. Now, again, picture this, okay? So you're Jewish. You've grown up with this idea that one day the Messiah will come. Probably half the people aren't even sure that's literal. Is it figurative? Is it really going to happen? If it's going to happen, it's not going to happen in my lifetime. It's kind of like the preacher on the street corner going, the end is near. You're like, yeah, whatever, right? So the Messiah is coming. Sure, whatever. So now your brother comes home, and he's like out of breath, and his eyes are wide. He's like, dude, we found him, the Messiah. Come with me. So Peter, in this moment, has a decision to make. Does he go with wild-eyed Andrew and just check it out, or does he just like dismiss it? But there's something about Peter that from this moment we see start to grow in his life, and that is this healthy curiosity that he just can't let things go. He's got to chase it down. This may not be the Messiah. Maybe my brother's lost it, but I'm going to go find out for myself. So he takes the invitation, and here it goes. And Andrew brings him to Jesus. And Jesus, now when Simon's walking up, his name's Simon, right? He looks at him and said, you're Simon, son of John. Now, what we don't know is whether Andrew said, I'll be right back, I'm going to get my brother, he's really cool, you two should meet, you'd like each other. We don't know that, or whether Jesus just kind of knew stuff. We don't know what happened in this moment. But anyways, he says, you're Simon, son of John. You'll be called Cephas, which translated is Peter. Now, you may or may not know that back in the day when this was written, names were like an identity. They spoke to your destiny, okay? So Simon means to hear. So he's growing up with this mantle, this identity. I'm the one who's supposed to listen. I'm the one who's supposed to hear. Then Jesus comes and he says, yeah, and if you keep that up, you're going to become Peter, which means rock. If you hear me and you keep hearing me and you put that into practice, you're going to become a rock. Does that ring any bells? Remember when Jesus was teaching later on in this story? He says, anyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. That parable is basically Peter's name. So this is huge. So Jesus, the first time he meets Peter, he speaks destiny into his identity. And he leaves it. Just leaves it there. Do you know what the interesting thing is? Peter followed him around for a little bit. He's like, rock. I want to be the rock. Andrew's like, don't read too much into it. You know, it's like, this is his brother, right? He didn't get anything from Jesus. Jesus is like, oh, you're the rock. But so they're walking around going, this is cool. I could be the rock. I could be the rock, right? I'm the rock. You're a piece of work, man. You're not the rock. So they're having this conversation, but he follows Jesus around for a little bit. But it's like Jesus is deliberately poking his curiosity. It's like saying, if you want to know who you really are, if you want to know your full potential, if you want to live into your destiny, follow me around a little bit. See what happens. So Peter does. And then he meets a couple of other guys that have been tapped as well. This like small group of men. And I want to say this at this point, that they're men at this point, but none of these guys are believers yet. None of them have crossed over and committed themselves. They're just curious. They're like, let's just follow this, just see where this goes. They're following out of curiosity, and they bring their questions with them. They're like, could this be the one? I think he's the one. Now I'm not so sure, and he's saying weird stuff. And they start asking Jesus questions, right? Have you ever noticed this as a parent, that kids are full of questions? Of course, yes. Like, yeah, and there's never an end. It's bottomless. Why? How? How come? Why? When? Are we there yet? Yeah, just over and over and over and over again. You just want to lock him in the bathroom. Just like there, work it out. It's frustrating. But these disciples, they bring their questions to Jesus. And it's really interesting. If you walk through the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and you watch how the disciples interact, they're constantly asking Jesus questions. Why'd you say that? Why'd you do that? What does that mean? Could you explain? I didn't get it. How come are we going there next? Are we there yet? They're constantly asking questions, and nobody asks more questions than Peter. Hands down, Peter has it nailed. He asks more questions than all the other disciples put together. And this is really, really important. One day, Jesus says this really cryptic thing. He says, I will be with you only a little longer. Imagine your friend says that. Or your dad says that. Yep, I'm going to be checking out. I'll be gone soon. Well, like, you're going on a vacation? No, I mean, like, I'm gone. Like, I'm out. Does this raise any questions for you? It did for Peter. Jesus says, you'll look for me, and just like I told the Jews, so I tell you now, where I'm going, you can't come. Simon Peter, the guy who hears, who's on his way to becoming a rock, asked him, well, where are you going? It's a good question, right? Everyone else is going, yeah, where are you going? He's asking the question. Everybody else is asking. And Jesus replied, where I'm going, you can't follow now. But you can follow later. Notice he didn't answer the question. Where are you going? He didn't answer the question. He answers with something a little cryptic. And Peter asks, well, why can't I follow you now? This is like a 4-year-old. It's like Jesus is running this day camp with 4-year-olds. They're walking around asking all these questions, right? Why can't I follow you now? I'll lay down my life for you. And then Jesus answered with a question. Will you really lay down your life for me? Now here's the question for you. Does Jesus seem annoyed at all by these questions? Nope. There is not a record anywhere of a moment where Jesus is asked an honest-to-goodness question. Now, that's different than questions that are bait. Bait questions are different. But there's not a record of a person asking an honest question of Jesus where Jesus ever said, that's a dumb question, or stop asking me questions. Never. Jesus loves your questions. In fact, one of the more tragic verses, I think, as I'm studying through this series, one of the most tragic moments in the Gospels is actually this one. There comes a moment where Jesus says something particularly interesting, and it says this: the disciples, they didn't understand what he meant, and were afraid to ask him about it. Well, Peter, you asked like these stupid questions over and over and over again, and suddenly now it's like, I don't know, I'm not going to ask him, you ask him. That happens, by the way. There's moments where John's like, I'm not going to ask him, you ask him. No, you ask him. No, you ask him. Peter, go ask him. Okay, and Peter lines up. This is a moment where they're wondering about something, they're curious about it, but nobody's got the guts to ask. Every single person in this room wonders things. Me included. You wonder about things about God. You wonder about, how does that actually work? How come certain prayers weren't answered? How come this guy seems to succeed? How come I try so hard and nothing seems to happen? How come, why, when? All these questions, what's going on? You've got questions or you've got wondering, but the challenge and the invitation, and this is what Peter was so good at, is to take your wondering and turn it into asking. Don't just wonder. Ask him. Have the guts to turn to Jesus and ask him your question. What's the worst that can happen? That's what Shauna would tell me. What's the worst that can, just ask. What's the worst that can happen? Ask the question. Now, what you're going to bump into right away is whether you believe Jesus is just an idea or a person. Well, why would I ask him? I never hear anything. Okay, so now we've got another question you could ask. Why don't you hear anything? But turn your wondering into asking. Jesus loves your questions. Loves your questions. Any honest question. He knows you have it. He knows you're wondering. He just wants you to ask. Why? Because he wants a relationship with you. He doesn't just want to download stuff into your brain. He actually wants to interact with you. He's real. He loves this. Now, churches aren't known as places that love questions. That's part of it. If you've grown up in church, you've learned, shut up and don't ask any nasty questions. When I was a youth pastor in Winnipeg, my very first gig, I lasted 15 months, including the severance. They were very generous, gave me 3 months after 12. Yeah. I've been back and we've reconciled and everything's good. But it was interesting because that year I really got to know the youth of that youth group, and we were tight, especially the guys and I had this group, and to this day sometimes we connect, and these guys throughout this process were just ripped in half too, because they didn't want us to get, because I didn't get fired, but I just got let go. My contract wasn't renewed. And so they were going through turmoil and questioning God and all kinds of things too, right? This is how this works. And about a year later, or 2 years later, once I was in another church, I got this beautiful handwritten letter from one of these guys, and just talking about watching me walk through this difficult season of our lives. And you know what he said? He said, "You showed me that you can ask questions without doubting." You weren't doubting God. You weren't mad at God. You just didn't understand. And you voiced those questions. So thank you for giving me permission to ask the questions without feeling like it could unravel everything. Isn't that cool? I didn't do it on purpose, but that was the message, and that's what I believe God wants you to hear today. Turn your wondering into asking. Now, why does Jesus love your questions? I'm going to unpack 3 reasons, and these 3 points, these are powerful. If you've ever wondered why certain people seem to grow in their faith more than others, you will find part of the answer, a large part of the answer, right here. Okay? So, why Jesus loves your questions? Number 1, because we're disciples, not masters. A disciple is a student. A disciple is a pupil. A disciple is a learner. A hearer, someone who's taking in information. Now, when you're in school, if you ask too many questions, it means you're not paying attention. With Jesus, if you don't have any questions, it's because you're not paying attention. It's the opposite. If nothing Jesus says creates questions in your mind, you're not paying attention. It's supposed to be creating questions. You are a disciple, not a master. We like to be strung along in our Christian life and our walk with God from answer to answer to answer. But guess what? It's the opposite. The second reason Jesus loves your questions is your questions drive your quest. Look at the word question. question. Could it be that one of the reasons you're stagnating in your faith is you're not chasing down your questions? Your questions drive your pursuit, and your pursuit takes you deeper. If you don't have any questions, you're just waiting for answers that you haven't even asked for, and you haven't earned them in a sense, and so they don't mean much to you. So you're sitting there wondering why you're not progressing. It's your questions that drive your pursuit. It's the question that was raised in Peter, where he's like, what does it mean, a rock? How could I become a rock? Why did he give me a new name? What is that even about? That drove him to follow Jesus in the first place. And then as he's asking more questions, guess what? Jesus is answering those questions, but here's the interesting thing. Your questions lead to more questions. I'll get that in just a little bit. Now, there's someone in this room that I really admire. Her name is Carla Neufeld. She's been in our life group for years and years and years, since before we even started Manifest. Carla has grown by leaps and bounds in her relationship with God. In fact, it would be hard to find a person in this room that has grown more than Carla in the last 5 years. Now, something you should know about Carla is Carla asks more questions than anybody I know. Every single Bible study, I have a question. Now, sometimes I feel like they have the answer. Sometimes I go, what do you guys think? Sometimes I go, let's dive in. Let's see if we can find the answer. But the fact is, she's always got questions, which means she's always on a quest. And that means that she's always being drawn forward by something God is activating and poking in her, and she's being pulled forward into the kind of person that she's called to be. And the same is true for all of us, or can be true for all of us. It's one of the keys to a relationship, is the interaction. This is really big. Your questions drive your quest. Now, the thing about God's answers is that they're designed to create more questions. Have you noticed that? Even this interaction with Peter, Jesus kind of gives him an answer, but it just raises more questions. How many of you watched that movie or the series Lost on TV? That's right, or any kind of drama that goes from week to week to week, or This Is Us. How many This Is Us people? How many? There we go. So let's just or House of Cards or whatever it is for you. But if there's a progression, there's a story building. What keeps you watching is not resolution; it's question. And the very best writing, the most exciting, most captivating stories are ones that even when they give you an answer, it raises 5 more questions. So now, I have to watch the next one, right? Again and again and again, you finally, what's going to happen? Are they going to open the hatch? Will they get it open? If they get it open, will they find what's in there? And it's like, there's a button in there. There's a button. What does the button do? So like you're being strung along. What if they push the button? What if they don't? What if it's not connected to anything, right? And you're asking, and how does that connect to the smoke monster and why? And you're like, and so like you watch till the very end. In the very end, they've got 646 questions to answer, and they answer 19. So now there's fan theories, and the reason that series survived as long as it did, even through the parts that got a little, was because you're pulled forward by your questions. If you have no questions of God, and you're not taking those questions to God, you will be stagnant in your relationship with Him. You have to be. You're driven by that, and His answers stir up more questions. Here's a statement that may be encouraging, it may not. When God gives you an answer, it is to give you certainty. It is to give you a certain peace and certainty so that you can face even greater mystery. It's not to settle you so that you can park there. It's to give you a kind of a home base. It's to give you a beachhead on a particular issue so that you can face even greater mystery. You will never get to the end of the mystery. You will never have all the answers. And I think this is what's happening in our culture. There's a reaction against churches that try to nail every single thing down. There are no questions, there are only answers. Jesus is like, are you not paying attention? Jesus asks really good questions. And this is the third thing. Jesus loves questions because questions have a very powerful effect on us. God's questions get us asking the questions we should be asking. I don't mean that God wonders about things. I mean that God asks questions out loud that get us asking the questions we should be asking. So right in the beginning, Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve screwed everything up, right? And they realized that they had sinned and broken their relationship with God. And God comes walking in the cool of the day to find Adam and Eve, and they're like, ugh! And they run into the bush and they're sewing fig leaves together and hiding in the shadows. And God's question is, where are you? It's not because he doesn't know. It's because he wants Adam and Eve to ask themselves that question. Where are you? It's true. Where am I? What am I doing? What has just happened? Really good question. A couple of chapters later, Cain and Abel, right? This whole story. Cain's super jealous of Abel, insanely jealous of Abel, and he's plotting to kill Abel, his brother, to murder him and bury him in the sand. And God comes and asks him this question: why are you so angry? It's not because God doesn't know the answer. It's because it's really important that Cain figures that out. He's asking questions that get him asking the right questions. How many times did Jesus ask his disciples, where's your faith? It's not because he doesn't know. It's because he wants them to answer the question. He wants them to ask it of themselves. It's a really good question. Why? Because every one of those questions is a quest. It takes them somewhere they would not go had they not asked the question and gone after the answer. So back to this interchange with Jesus. Look, Lord, where are you going? Why can't I follow you now? Jesus kind of answers, but look what he does. He answers with the question that gets Peter asking the question he should be asking. So God loves your questions. Just be prepared for the fact that some of your questions aren't the best questions. Ask them, that's fine. Just be prepared for the fact that Jesus may direct you in a different direction. Will you really lay down your life for me? That's the question you need to be asking, Peter. Because you're going to have to choose. By the end of this night, I'm going to be put on trial, and you're going to be tested. Satan's going to sift you like wheat. So you may want to be asking a different question right now. And that's the grace of God in this. It's the grace of God. Jesus loves your questions. He loves them. So here's my question to you. What questions have you been asking? Or have you just been plowing through life? Have you been just kind of mulling things over yourself, trying to figure stuff out? Or have you taken your questions to Jesus and said, hey, how come my partners always get the promotions? Why am I always the one left out? How come I never seem to make traction in my life? When you come to the scriptures, if you're just looking for answers, the quest is over. What you need to do is bring your questions to what you're reading. God, He's here. He's with us. So you're opening the Bible, you go, why'd you say that? Do what the disciples did. How come you said that? How come it seems like you're mad? Were you mad? Or you weren't mad? And make it a conversation with God. And you'll suddenly be in a relationship with him that you'd never dreamt was possible. Bring your questions. So here's what I want to do. as we close, you want to get your camera out, take a picture of this slide. Take it with you. Sorry, not this slide. Now you're wondering, what's the slide? See, you're asking a question that's taking you forward. One day, Jesus was saying some particularly weird stuff. People were like, he was like, hey, unless you drink my blood and eat my flesh, you can't be part of me. And lots of people are like, okay, I'm out. That's it. It's like, when you're giving out free bread and stuff, it was really good. It was really good bread. Love the sourdough in particular, the whole wheat not so much. But this is kind of how people were taking it. And then he starts saying that, hey, you've got to eat my flesh. And they just leave in droves, by the hundreds, by the thousands. And so Jesus asks the question that focuses them on the stuff they're supposed to be. He's not hurt, but they need to be asking themselves, do you not want to leave, or you don't want to leave too, do you? Look at Peter's answer. Look what it pulled out of him. Simon Peter answered him, Lord, to whom shall we go? Where else would we go? You have the words of eternal life. We've come to believe and know that you are the Holy One of God. You're it. Where else would we go? Jesus is like, there, mission accomplished. Why don't you leave? This doesn't sound like an insecure leader, actually. It's the opposite. He's like, so, you going? You're on your way? And Peter's like, he's thinking through the question, going, no, I'm not on my way. In fact, where else would I go? Bang on. Good question, Peter. Where else would you go? But the point is this. We are in the habit of going other places for our questions and our answers. What would it look like if we had this attitude that Peter had? That even though he was a piece of work, he had this curiosity, this insatiable desire to understand that translated into asking questions, and it led him on the quest of a lifetime to become the rock that Jesus said he could be. What if we took our questions to Jesus, to God, instead of just trying to figure stuff out on our own? That's the real question. So now, here's the take out your camera moment. Please take a picture of this and walk with this. 5 questions for God this week. Again, when you come to the Bible, don't just read it. Talk to God about it. Ask him questions. The what, why, how, where, when, who. When you're faced with a situation that you don't know how to handle, or it's going south on you, or someone's done something to you to offend you, I dare you to ask Jesus the question, what am I not seeing about this situation right now? When you find yourself reacting a certain way, ask yourself, ask God the question, why do I keep reacting that way? How about this one? Who do you want me to love today? Ask him the question. I guarantee someone will come to mind. Who do you want to love? Then what do? How? When? Where? What shape should it take? Ask questions and watch where it takes you. And then building on Tom's message from 2 weeks ago, where do I need to grow or change? I dare you to ask God these questions. And don't just ask the question and then leave it. Go after the answer with him. Don't let it go. Watch what God does with your life.